Hey, welcome back to No Can Do. My name is Clara, and today I'm going to give you an in-depth tutorial on how to whitewash furniture. This is the bleached wood look. I'm going to explain how to lighten wood furniture without using bleach. I tried this technique on a couple different projects before, and today I really want to break it down step by step, give you an in-depth tutorial, and answer a lot of the questions that I got on one of my last videos. Today I'm going to be breaking it down about how to get this look on your own furniture, your kitchen cabinets, pretty much any wood that you want to lighten up. So what I see is a lot of people who have oak, whether it's oak cabinets or oak furniture. I've done some oak TV stands. There's a lot of oak that was happening in the 80s and 90s, and we're wondering, what the heck can we do with this wood? Part of the problem with the oak is that it's really orangey, and that kind of aesthetic is just not in. I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to update some of this old oak furniture that's really going to just brighten things up in your home. Let's get started. So first things first, we're going to want to clean the piece. I'm going to use a cloth and some cleaning solution. You can really use anything. You could use dish soap and water, you could use vinegar and water, anything to get off the grit, the grime, and a good degreaser will help. Then after that, make sure to wipe and wash the whole thing down with a clean, damp rag to make sure to get off any cleaning solution. If you don't wash your piece after you clean it with soap, there'll still be residue on it and it'll be harder for the paint to stick. We don't want that. Once it's fully dried, then we can move on. Looking at my piece today, I could sand it down and get rid of all the stain that is on there, or I could use a scraper to remove that layer of stain, or I could use a chemical stripper. Or if you want to use a stripper to get rid of the stain, I'm going to recommend what I use down below. It's called QCS from the brand Stripwell, and it's the only one that I really want to use. Okay, so my piece is clean. I personally don't want to strip this. I personally don't want to sand this, but I've done that plenty of other times, and I'll show you down below in my other linked to videos, times that I've done that and how it looks. Personally, I just don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like taking this outside and sanding it, and that's okay. This is in my office, it's in my corner, a printer goes on top of it. It's not really a beautiful accent piece that I'm trying to show off to the world, so I'm not too worried about it. So one of the number one questions I've gotten is, what type of paint can you use to get this effect? So you're essentially making a paint wash, which is a mixture of water and paint. So first of all, you're gonna need to use a water-based, no oil paints. Hopefully that goes without saying, but water and oil do not mix. You need water-based. The other thing you're gonna want is something that's made for furniture. So there's a lot of really amazing furniture paints out there from the brands Annie Sloan, Dixie Belle, Country Chic. There's a bunch out there. You want to make sure that you're using one that you can add water to. So for example, Dixie Belle is an amazing furniture paint company, and they have a couple different lines. Their main paint, just the Dixie Belle paint, chalk paint, you can water down, you could do a paint wash with it, no problem. But they also have this silk mineral paint, which I've used on a lot of projects and I love. However, they recommend that you don't add water to this. This silk mineral paint is an all-in-one paint, so it has the primer, the paint, and the top coat all included. So you can kind of understand, like, yeah, you probably wouldn't want to water down primer, you probably wouldn't want to water down the top coat. So they recommend not to water this paint down. So I wouldn't use this for a paint wash. This, however, this Country Chic paint is an all-in-one paint, but it says that it's totally fine for you to add water to it. So you have to just read the directions on the different paints and see what they say. I've made paint washes with this several times before and it's worked like a charm. So you just have to read the directions and go from there. Annie Sloan paint is a great paint to use. Their chalk paint is very thick. It's made to be watered down. If you're working on a smaller project, you could probably get away with getting one of their smaller cans of paint and starting with that. What I wouldn't recommend is using latex paint that you get like from the hardware store. That isn't a furniture paint, that isn't a chalk paint. Those aren't made to be watered down. So I wouldn't take like latex wall paint and water that down and turn that into a paint wash. I'm not sure if it's possible. It might be, but based on my understanding of different paints and the components in them and what they're supposed to be used for, that wouldn't be something that I personally would try. So let's get started. Today I'm going to use the Country Chic paint. This is in the color Cheesecake. And again, this is an all-in-one paint with a chalky finish. It's a clay paint. And this, it says all-in-one, but it says that it's like, it has a self-top. No, it says self-priming. This clay paint is self-priming on most pieces, but it recommends using a top coat. So is it really all-in-one? And it also talks about how you need a primer for certain surfaces like mahogany. So we're gonna take our Country Chic decor paint. Another question I got was, what is the ratio of water to paint, paint to water? So what I'm going to recommend is that you start with a 2-to-1 ratio of water to paint. So 2 parts water to 1 part paint, and that you can adapt from there. So I'm going to start today with 2 parts water to 1 part paint, and then I might adjust from there so I can show you what the difference is and what it might look like to try out something else. So to get started here, I'm going to make the paint wash. You could just eyeball it, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to measure it by weight. So I'm going to put my container on the scale, turn it on, zero it out. And like I said, I'm going to do 2 parts water to 1 part paint. I'm just going to start here with a little bit of paint because you can always add more. This is a small piece too, so I don't think I'm going to need a lot. Okay, so that's 0.88 ounces or 25 milliliters. Okay, so now it's 75 milliliters. So I put in 25 milliliters of paint, 50 milliliters of water. I'm going to mix this all up. So I'm pretty sure I'm gonna want more water in this, but let me just show you what it looks like right now. Wet my brush, dip it in, et voila. So you can see that the paint is blocking a lot of the natural wood grain. For me, this says there's too much paint on here and I'm gonna want more water. But one thing that you can do to help counteract this is after you do a layer of the paint wash, you can wipe it back gently. And that'll leave a little bit of a layer there. And once that dries, that'll look nice. But I do think that this is just too much paint in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and wash this off and add another 25 milliliters of water to my wash here. And then it's gonna be 3-to-1 ratio. Great. So 3 parts water to 1 part paint. Mixing that up real nice. You wanna make sure ideally that there's not any paint stuck on the bottom, because when you dip your brush in, it can grab too much of that if it touches the bottom of the container. Yeah. I already like that better. You can actually see through the paint. It's not just a thick line. It's more of a wash than just watered down paint. I think that's the difference. 2 to 1, it was more just like watered down paint, and 3 to 1, it's more of a paint wash. Hopefully that resonates. So I'm just gonna do a nice layer here, making sure I get the whole top. I'm probably gonna end up doing more coats, so I'm not too worried about it looking perfect, but it is nice to try and have the brush strokes going with the wood grain of the paint when possible. So now that I have a nice even coat of that, I could just leave it, let that sink in, or I could wipe it back. I'm gonna wipe it back just to show you what that'll look like. I'm not applying much force. I just want to get it to where I can see more of the wood grain. Nice. So I'm going to let this dry, and while it's drying, I'm going to do the rest of the piece. So this is still drying, but you can see already with just one layer, the difference, oops, I smudged that. The difference between the wood the way it was and one coat of this whitewash. It already is looking so much better. So now this is just drying here in the sun, and I just wanted to share that there's a couple other techniques that you could use that might help. One thing that you can do instead of wiping back the paint wash is to use a dry brush, and you can just take that dry brush and kind of spread around the paint wash with it after it's already on there, and then you can kind of dab it on a dry cloth in between. That way you're kind of still going with the wood grain, you're not getting uneven pressure, whereas when you're taking a rag and, you know, pulling it across with your hand, there's gonna be more pressure points, like you're grabbing onto it, it's uneven. But if you use a dry brush and you just kind of like gently spread it around, wipe a bit off, and then you wipe off the excess onto a dry cloth, then that I think is a little bit more helpful. One more thing to note is if there are places where the paint wash is kind of pooling up, like I noticed on the ledges here, it was kind of pooling up, you can just take a damp cloth or a damp paintbrush and you can kind of just dab it off. Because this is water-based paint, water can remove it. So it's a great remover, at least while things are still fresh. So I noticed over here, yeah, so right here there's a little bit too much paint, so I'm just gonna take a damp cloth and like just kind of slightly go like that. Use just a little bit of pressure, and that's gonna even it out a lot. Right now it looks like a different tone because it's completely wet, but once it dries it'll blend in with the rest of the piece very nicely. I didn't love the way these handles look, so I could either whitewash them or paint them solid. And I'm gonna paint them solid in the color that we used. So now it's pretty much dry, and I'm gonna go over and check and see if there's any last spots that I need to do touch-ups. Otherwise, I'm getting ready to put on a top coat. So I could use a water-based polyacrylic as a top coat, or I could use a clear wax, or I could use an oil-based top coat. I'm gonna use clear wax today because I like that the best for this particular thing, and I'll show you how I do it. Hopefully you can see it kind of deepens it, darkens it. I think it gives it a bit richer, nicer color to it and makes it look more like it's a lighter piece of wood rather than a darker piece of wood with light painted on it, which is what I did. But you can use any type of furniture wax. I'm using clear wax, the Best Dang wax from Dixie Belle. I actually prefer Annie Sloan's clear wax. This is white in the tin and then it goes on clear and dries clear. And the wax from Annie Sloan is clear in the tin, goes on clear. I think it dries a little bit harder and I just like it a little bit better. But this is what I had. So now I'm gonna let the wax dry on the piece and then I can wipe off any excess and then I could recoat in 24 hours. If you wanna buff it up and make it shinier, you can do that, but I think I'm good with it as is. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. I'm including a playlist right there of all the projects that I have used this technique on. Hopefully you can go get some inspiration, try it out for yourself, and of course, let me know down in the comments below if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next flip. Bye.